Saturday morning. I'm driving up the mountain to check on my parents' old cabin, the one I inherited 3 years ago. A Toyota Camry sits in my driveway. Curtains I never bought hang in my windows. Smoke rises from my chimney. I park. Walk to the front door. Before I can knock, it swings open. A man in his late 50s stands there, silver hair slicked back, polo shirt with an HOA logo on the chest. He looks at me like I'm trespassing. On my own property. Can I help you? This is private property. My parents' house. The house where my father taught me to ski. Where my mother made chicken soup every winter. And a stranger is telling me I don't belong here. I'm the HOA president, he says. This property was taken over under Section 7.4.2, Abandoned Property Protocol. I never received any notice. He didn't know 2 things. First, the only road leading to this cabin runs through a private easement that I own. No public access. No HOA jurisdiction. Second, I'm a senior data analyst. My job is finding patterns that other people miss. Donald Mendoza thought he found an easy target. An absentee owner. A house no one would check on. He picked the wrong house, and he's about to find out why. Before we dive in, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Now, let's get into it.
The drive from Denver takes 2 hours. Winding roads, pine trees, thin mountain air that bites when I roll down the window. 14 months since my last visit, work piled up, excuses stacked higher. But today I'm finally here to assess the cabin before hiring a contractor. The dirt road appears around the bend, narrow and rutted, barely wide enough for one vehicle. My father used to complain about it every winter. One road means one choice, he'd say. Come in or stay out. I slow down as the mailbox comes into view. Something is taped over my name, block letters on white paper. Mendoza, not handwritten, printed, laminated. Someone went to an office supply store, designed this, and attached it with weatherproof adhesive. This isn't squatting. This is an occupation. I pull into the driveway. A car that shouldn't be here. Curtains I never bought. Smoke from a chimney I haven't lit in years. The details blur together because none of them matter as much as the feeling rising in my chest. Displacement. The sense that I've somehow walked into a parallel version of my own life. One where I don't exist. I park and step out. The front door opens before I reach it. A man fills the doorway. Late 50s. Silver hair combed back with precision, navy polo shirt with an embroidered logo on the chest. Eagle Ridge Estates, HOA. His posture is deliberate, feet shoulder-width apart, hands clasped at his waist. It's a stance I've seen in depositions, a stance that says I've been waiting for this conversation. Can I help you? This is private property. His voice carries no hesitation, no surprise. He expected me. I'm Daniel Howard. I own this house. He doesn't blink. Mr. Howard, I was wondering when you'd show up. He shifts slightly, and through the gap I see the living room. Wrong furniture, wrong arrangement. The walls are bare where family photos used to hang. Everything that made this place mine has been erased. What happened to my belongings? My voice comes out flatter than I intend. He tilts his head. The property was declared abandoned under HOA bylaw section 7.4.2. As president, I authorized emergency preservation measures. Your belongings are in storage. He pauses. Most of them. I catalog his phrasing. Declared abandoned, authorized, emergency preservation. Every word chosen sounds official, legal, defensible. He's not making this up on the spot. He rehearsed it. I never received any notice, I say. We sent certified mail, multiple times. His hands remain clasped. His weight doesn't shift. It's not our responsibility if you choose to ignore it. Chose. The word lands like an accusation, as if I abandoned this place, as if I invited this. Through the window behind him, a woman moves in the kitchen, dark hair, mid-50s. She opens a cabinet and pulls out a mug. The cabinet my mother painted white one summer because she thought it looked too dark. The woman moves like she owns it, because in her mind, she does. The anger swells, but I hold it. Anger makes mistakes. I need information. I'd like to see the documentation, I say. The bylaw, the notices, the authorization. He smiles, practiced, symmetrical, a smile designed for photographs. I'm afraid that's not possible right now. HOA business hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. You're welcome to submit a formal request. He's dismissing me from my own home, and he's using bureaucracy as a weapon. You might wonder why I didn't force the issue, call the police, push past him, and reclaim what's mine. Here's why. The way he positioned himself. The legal language is loaded into every sentence. The laminated nameplate on the mailbox. Donald Mendoza didn't stumble into this house looking for shelter. He targeted it, prepared for it, built a defense before I even knew I needed to attack. If I escalate now, I become the aggressor. The angry absentee owner is making wild accusations. He'll have witnesses, his wife, maybe neighbors. I'll have nothing but righteous indignation, and that doesn't hold up in court. I'll be in touch, I say. He nods. I'm sure you will. I turn back toward my car. That's when I see it. On the porch railing, a small plastic box, gray, weathered, a lockbox for keys, the kind real estate agents use, but this one has a sticker on the side. Eagle Ridge Estates, property management, for a home that was never for sale, never for rent. A lockbox implies access codes, multiple visitors, a system. I don't mention it. I don't let my eyes linger. I get in my car and drive. The dirt road stretches ahead, the only way in or out. I think about the laminated nameplate, the lockbox, the rehearsed language. Donald Mendoza didn't make a mistake. He built a machine. A process for identifying vulnerable properties, creating paper trails, and taking ownership piece by piece. My house isn't his first. I'm certain of that now. I'm also certain of something else. Machines have patterns, and patterns can be broken. I just need to find where his breaks. Sunday morning, I sit at my kitchen table in Denver with a laptop, a legal pad, and coffee going cold. The drive home yesterday felt longer than it should have. My mind kept circling back to the lockbox, the laminated nameplate, the way Donald Mendoza spoke like a man reading from a script he wrote himself. Exhaustion won't help me now. Information will. I open my email and type Eagle Ridge into the search bar. 23 messages over the past 2 years. 23 messages I barely glanced at before archiving. The first one arrived 18 months ago. Subject line violation notice, unmaintained landscaping. I remember thinking it was the usual HOA harassment. The grass is too long. The fence needs to be painted. I was buried in a project deadline. I told myself I'd handle it later. Later never came. The notices kept arriving. Unapproved exterior modification, failure to respond to the inspection request, delinquent community assessment, each one more urgent than the last, each one signed by Donald Mendoza, President, Eagle Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. The final message, dated 14 months ago, references emergency preservation measures under Section 7.4.2. That's the bylaw Mendoza cited when he stood in my doorway. But here's what that section actually requires: written notice by certified mail, a 60-day cure period, a formal hearing before the board, and a recorded vote authorizing any action. 4 steps, 4 opportunities for the homeowner to respond. Mendoza mentioned none of them, because he skipped all of them. I log into USPS Informed Delivery and search the past 2 years. The service scans every piece of mail sent to my registered addresses. No certified letters from Eagle Ridge Estates appear in the records. Not one. Either Mendoza lied about sending them, or he sent them somewhere I'd never received them. I will check my property tax statements next. El Paso County mails them annually. The most recent one shows my Denver address, but the one before that, 16 months ago, shows a different mailing address. The cabin itself. Someone changed where my tax documents were sent. Someone wanted to make sure I'd missed them. Monday morning, I call the county recorder's office. The clerk confirms what I suspected. No liens recorded against my property, no foreclosure proceedings, no recorded transfer of interest. The title is clean. My name is still on the deed. I ask one more question: who's been paying the property taxes? She checks. Payments have been made on time for the past 18 months, but not from my bank account. I pull up my records to confirm. The auto pay I set up 3 years ago stopped processing 16 months ago. Failed payment, insufficient routing information. I never noticed because the amount was small and the alerts got buried. Someone else has been paying my property taxes. Someone who wanted to establish a pattern of financial responsibility for a house that isn't theirs. 18 months of occupancy. Exposed. Think about what that means. 18 months of utility bills in someone else's name. 18 months of mail forwarded or intercepted. 18 months of insurance premiums, maintenance costs, and tax payments create a paper trail that says this person lives here, this person maintains the property, this person acts like an owner. In some states, that pattern matters. Colorado requires 18 years for adverse possession, not 18 months. But Mendoza isn't trying to claim legal ownership. He's building a defense. If anyone ever questions him, he'll point to the records and say, I preserved this property. I paid the bills. I acted in good faith. The real owner abandoned it. I don't call a lawyer, not yet. A lawsuit starts a clock. And once that clock starts, Mendoza knows I'm coming. He'll prepare. He'll adjust. He'll find ways to delay and deflect. Right now, I have something more valuable than legal representation. I have the element of surprise. He thinks I drove away defeated. He thinks the bureaucracy scared me off. He has no idea I'm building a case file while he sleeps in my parents' bed. I pull up the county assessor's website and search for Eagle Ridge Estates. 67 homes. 12 have owners with mailing addresses different from the property address. Vacation homes, investment properties, inherited cabins, people who might not visit for months, people who might miss a few emails, people like me. I search public records for HOA complaints in the area. Most results are noise, fence disputes, holiday decoration arguments, but buried in the results, I find a name: Stephanie Patel, former board member, Eagle Ridge Estates. 2 years ago, she filed a complaint alleging financial irregularities and improper governance. The complaint was dismissed. Insufficient evidence. I circle her name twice on my legal pad. By Sunday night, my spreadsheet has 5 columns. Data violation notice, alleged violation, required procedure under CCNRs, evidence of compliance, actual outcome. The 4th column is almost empty. That's the point. Mendoza built his paper trail for intimidation, not for court. He assumed no one would ever audit his process. He assumed I'd pay the fines, sell the property, or disappear. He assumed the system would protect him because he controls the system. But every system has weaknesses, and I found 3 of his. First, no certified mail. His notice procedure is legally defective. Second, altered tax mailing address. Evidence of intent, possibly mail fraud. Third, 18 months of payments from an account that isn't mine. A paper trail that proves occupancy. Yes, but also proves he knew the house had an owner. An owner he deliberately cut out of the loop. Mendoza thought he was building a fortress. He was building a confession. I just need to make sure he signs it.
Okay, let's pause here for a moment. I know some of you are watching this and thinking, if that were me, I would have kicked down the door on day 1. I get it. Believe me, I understand the impulse. A stranger is living in your house, eating in your kitchen, sleeping in your bed. Every instinct says confront. Every instinct says fight. But here's the question I want you to sit with. If you kick down the door, who becomes the criminal? You, the rightful owner with a deed and a temper? Or Donald Mendoza, the man with a script, a witness, and 18 months of utility bills in his name? Sometimes the best revenge doesn't come from anger. It comes from patience. I'm Michael Vincent, your storyteller today on Fallout HOA. If you were in Daniel's position right now, what would you do? Drop your answer in the comments below. Let's see whose strategy comes out on top. Because from here on out, things are about to get a lot worse before they get better.
Tuesday evening. I sit in a coffee shop in Colorado Springs, 45 minutes from Eagle Ridge Estates. Across from me is a woman in her early 60s, silver-streaked hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose. Stephanie Patel, former board member. When I called her yesterday, she didn't ask why I wanted to meet. She just said, "It's about time someone else started asking questions." She slides a manila folder across the table. Inside are photocopies of meeting minutes, financial statements, and handwritten notes. "I kept everything," she says. "After they pushed me off the board, I knew someday it would matter." She tells me what happened. 3 years ago, she noticed discrepancies in the reserve fund, money allocated for road maintenance that never appeared in contractor invoices. Special assessments were collected for projects that never broke ground. She raised concerns at a board meeting. Donald Mendoza thanked her for her diligence. 2 months later, she received a letter stating that homeowners had complained about her hostile behavior. She was removed by a vote held on a date she was never notified about. "I filed a complaint with the county," she says. "They asked for documentation. I gave them what I had. It wasn't enough to prove anything on its own." She taps the folder. "But I kept collecting." I flip through the pages. Financial summaries, board resolutions, attendance records. One document shows the reserve account balance 2 years ago, $47,000. The most recent HOA newsletter lists the current balance at $12,000. I run the numbers in my head, $35,000 in 24 months. I ask Stephanie about major repairs or capital projects. She shakes her head. Nothing that would explain it. A few tree removals, some signage, maybe $5,000 total, if you're generous. I pull out my own notes. 67 homes in Eagle Ridge, 12 owned by non-residents. I'd found 5 of those 12 flagged for serious compliance issues in the past 3 years. I mention this to Stephanie. She frowns and flips to a handwritten page in her folder. "I tracked complaints for a while," she says. "Violations issued, fines collected." She runs her finger down the list. Among the 55 resident owners, she counted 2 formal enforcement actions in the same period, 2 out of 55. I look at my own numbers again, 5 out of 12. That's almost half the absentee owners. I want to believe it's a coincidence. Maybe non-residents really do let their properties slip. Maybe they miss more deadlines, ignore more notices, but the gap is too wide. I keep staring at the ratio, waiting for it to make innocent sense. It doesn't. Stephanie pulls out another document, county court records, 7 years ago. Donald Mendoza filed for Chapter 7, bankruptcy, personal debt exceeding $300,000. His primary residence is listed with negative equity. He was underwater, Stephanie says. I'm not saying it means anything on its own. People recover from bankruptcy, but 2 years after this filing, he's running for HOA president. 3 years after that, he's driving a new truck, and his wife is posting vacation photos from a cabin in the mountains. She pauses. A cabin I couldn't find in any property records under his name. I don't say anything. I'm thinking about the timeline, the bankruptcy, the rise to HOA president, the missing reserve funds, the pattern of violations against owners who aren't around to fight back. None of it proves anything by itself. But together, the pieces start forming a shape I don't like. Stephanie slides one more page across the table, a property record for a cabin on the north end of Eagle Ridge, owner listed as Eleanor Vance, 78 years old, primary address in Florida. 2 years ago, her property was flagged for abandoned status, Stephanie says. Same process you're describing, violation notices, emergency preservation. I ask what happened. She points to a date on the document. The HOA board voted to authorize access to Eleanor's property on March 15th. But according to Stephanie's meeting attendance log, the March board meeting was held on the 22nd, a week after the vote supposedly happened. The resolution is backdated, she says. I don't know why. Maybe to make the timeline look cleaner. Maybe because there was no actual vote. Eleanor Vance passed away last spring. Her family discovered tenants in the cabin when they tried to settle the estate. They hired a lawyer. It dragged on for months. Eventually, they settled and walked away. I close the folder. My chest feels tight, but not from anger, from recognition. I see what this is now. Not a conspiracy, not some mastermind scheme, just opportunity meeting indifference. A man with debt and access, owners who don't show up, a system designed to trust the people running it. Donald Mendoza didn't have to be a genius. He just had to pay attention to who wasn't paying attention. I thank Stephanie for her time. As I stand, She grabs my arm. "Be careful," she says. "Donald has people who owe him. On the board, maybe in the county. If you go loud, he'll hear about it before you're ready." I nod. I understand. Charging in won't work. Lawyers won't work. Not yet. What I need is something Donald can't talk his way out of. Something physical. Something undeniable. On the drive back to Denver, I think about the cabin, the dirt road, the property survey I pulled last week. I remember a detail I almost overlooked. The road that leads to my cabin isn't public. It's not the HOA common area either. According to the recorded plat, that road sits entirely within my property boundaries. A private easement, deeded to me. Donald Mendoza has been living in my house for 18 months, but every time he drives in or out, he crosses land that belongs to me. Land I never permitted him to use. I don't have a lawsuit yet. I don't have a criminal case, but I might have a door, and I control who gets to walk through it. Thursday afternoon. I sit in a conference room in downtown Denver, across from a woman in her early 50s, with sharp eyes and a legal pad already half filled with notes. Judith Watson, real estate attorney specializing in HOA disputes and property litigation. A former colleague recommended her after his own boundary dispute. She doesn't waste time, he said, and she doesn't lose cases she takes on. I've spent the last hour walking her through everything. The violation notices, the missing certified mail, the altered tax address, the 18 months of payments from an unknown account, Eleanor Vance, Stephanie Patel, the backdated resolution. She listened without interrupting, occasionally underlining something on her pad. Now she sets down her pen and looks at me directly. "You have grounds," she says. "Criminal and civil." She runs through the list quickly. Trespass, potential theft if belongings were disposed of, fraud if HOA documents were fabricated. On the civil side, conversion, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and breach of fiduciary duty. Together, these paint a clear picture, she says. The question is how you want to move. She outlines two paths. Call the sheriff now, get Mendoza arrested, and spend the next year in legal combat while he crafts a good faith defense. Or build the case first, lock down every piece of evidence, and move when there's nothing left to spin. I don't need time to think about it. Option 2, I say. She nods. Then we stay quiet, no confrontation, no public accusations. We document, verify, and wait for the right moment. I ask how long. A few weeks, maybe a month. A month feels long, but a year of courtroom limbo feels longer. Saturday morning. I drive back up the mountain, but this time I park a quarter-mile from the cabin and walk the rest on foot, staying in the tree line. The Camry is still in the driveway. Smoke from the chimney, movement behind the kitchen window. I don't approach. I came to observe, not confront. I photograph everything from a distance: the car, the license plate, the mailbox with the laminated nameplate, the lockbox on the porch, timestamps on every image. Then I walk the perimeter, staying outside the yard boundary. Every frame is another piece of evidence that Donald Mendoza is living here, openly, continuously, in a house that belongs to me. As I circle back toward the road, I stop. The dirt path stretches ahead, narrow and rutted. My father never improved it because he liked the privacy. One way in, one way out. I pull out my phone and open the property survey I downloaded from county records. I'd reviewed it before, checking lot boundaries. But now I look closer at the access road. The lines are faint on the screen, but unmistakable. The road doesn't just lead to my property, it sits within my property boundaries. A private easement, deeded with the land, running from the county road to the cabin, no public right-of-way, no HOA common area designation. If you've been paying attention, you might remember me mentioning this road earlier. It seemed like a small detail then. It's not small anymore. I call Judith from the car. She answers on the second ring. I explain what I found: the easement, the survey, the fact that the only access to the cabin runs across land I own outright. She's quiet for a moment. That changes things, she says. If the road is your private property, you have the legal right to control who uses it, post no trespassing signs, install a gate, restrict access to anyone without permission. I ask if that applies to Mendoza. Especially Mendoza. He might argue whatever he wants about the cabin, but there's no recorded easement in his favor. No HOA authority extends to your private land. If you lawfully restrict that road, anyone who enters without authorization is trespassing. Separately from the house, a second violation. I ask what that means practically. It means if you close access to your road, Mendoza has a choice: leave voluntarily and deal with the legal consequences later, or stay and explain to the sheriff why he's on property he has no right to be on. I sit with that for a moment. This isn't about blocking someone in. It's about exercising a right I've always had. The road is mine. I never permitted anyone to use it. Installing a gate isn't aggression, it's boundary enforcement. The same thing every property owner does when they put up a fence. I end the call and search for contractors who install security gates. I found a company in Colorado Springs with availability the following week. Steel frame gate, electronic lock, solar-powered camera with cloud backup. I sent a message requesting a quote for installation on the following Saturday. That gives me 7 days to finalize documentation with Judith. 7 days before the gate goes up. I drive down the mountain slowly. The road curves through pine and aspen. The same view my father saw every time he made this drive. I think about what comes next. The gate isn't the end. It's the beginning. Once it's installed, the clock starts. Mendoza will see it. He'll react. He'll do something. Say something. That becomes part of the record. And when he does, I'll be ready. You might be wondering if I feel confident. I don't. Not entirely. Mendoza has been doing this for years. He has relationships in the community, maybe in the county. He's survived complaints before. Stephanie Patel tried to expose him and got pushed out. Eleanor Vance's family gave up. There's no guarantee this ends differently. But there's one thing I have that they didn't. I found the seam in his system, the one thing he can't talk his way around. He's been crossing my land every day for 18 months. And in 7 days, that access ends. Not with a confrontation, not with a lawsuit, just a gate, a camera, and a legal right he can't dispute. Whatever happens next, it happens on my terms.
Okay, if you're still here, I need to ask you something. Are you following what's about to happen? Because from this point forward, there's no turning back. Not for me. Not for Donald Mendoza. The gate goes up in 7 days. Once it does, every move he makes gets recorded. Every reaction becomes evidence. He won't know it yet, but the moment that gate locks, his options disappear. I spent weeks gathering documents, tracing patterns, building a case. That was the quiet part, the careful part. What comes next isn't quiet, so stay with me, because you're going to want to see how this ends.
Saturday morning, 7 days after my conversation with Judith, 2 contractors from Colorado Springs finish anchoring the final beast into concrete, steel frame gate, electronic lock, solar-powered camera with cloud backup, a sign mounted on the front private road, no trespassing, property under surveillance, violators will be prosecuted, the contractors leave by noon. I stand alone at the entrance to my property and look at what I've built. I don't lock the gate, not yet. I want Mendoza to see it first. I want to know what he does when he realizes the ground has shifted beneath him. 48 hours later, I received an email from the Eagle Ridge Estates HOA. Subject line: unauthorized structure. Immediate action required. The body. Signed by Donald Mendoza as president. Informs me that I've installed an unapproved structure on community common area in violation of Section 3.2 of the CCNRs. Remove the gate within 72 hours or face fines of $150 per day. The language is formal, threatening, but his argument has a fatal flaw. The road isn't a common area. The recorded plat shows it clearly as part of my deeded property. Mendoza either knows this and is bluffing, or he never checked. Either way, his email just became evidence. I reply the same day. Professional, precise. I cite the deed recorded in Book 47, page 312 of the El Paso County records. I attach the property survey. I state that the HOA has no jurisdiction over private property not designated as common area, and that further correspondence should go through legal channels. I copied Judith, I screenshot everything and add it to my file. No anger, no accusations, just facts he can't refute. 2 days later, a letter arrives by regular mail. Same letterhead, same signature. This time, the violation is community aesthetics. The gate is inconsistent with Eagle Ridge's visual standards. I photograph the envelope, the postmark, and the letter. I don't respond, but I note one thing: still no certified mail. For all his talk of procedure, Mendoza keeps avoiding the method that creates a verifiable record. He's making the same mistake with me that he made with Eleanor Vance. He thinks paper is enough. He doesn't realize that paper only works if no one reads it carefully. The camera captures something on day 5. Mendoza's car approaches around 9 in the morning. It stops at the gate. The driver's side door opens. He steps out, walks to the sign, and stands there for 2 full minutes. He doesn't touch anything. He just reads. Then he pulls out his phone, photographs the sign, and gets back in his car. He doesn't try to enter. He doesn't call out. He turns around and drives away. Watching the footage later, I notice something in his posture, the way his shoulders tighten as he reads, the way he glances at the camera before leaving. He's not confused. He's calculating. For the first time, Donald Mendoza is trying to figure out what I know. That night, his wife posts something on the community message board. Stephanie alerts me. The post doesn't use my name. It just says some people think they're above community rules. Sad to see what this neighborhood is becoming. Comments pile up underneath. Some neighbors agree, others ask questions. I don't engage. Online arguments don't win cases. I let the noise happen and focus on what matters. By Sunday, the evidence file is substantial, but I want to be clear about something. This didn't happen overnight. The 127 documents in that folder represent weeks of work. Late nights cross-referencing emails with county records, phone calls to verify timelines, hours sorting through Stephanie's files to identify patterns, 43 photographs, each one time-stamped and cataloged, 6 videos from the gate camera, 15 witness statements compiled from prior complaints. Building a case isn't dramatic, it's repetitive, it's tedious. It's the same task done correctly, over and over, until there's nothing left to question. Judith reviews the complete file and confirms we're ready to move on 3 fronts. First, a criminal complaint to the El Paso County Sheriff, outlining evidence of trespass and potential theft. Second, a civil lawsuit covering trespass, conversion, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. Third, a formal complaint to the Colorado Division of Real Estate, citing Mendoza's use of his HOA position for personal benefit. 3 paths, 3 opportunities for accountability. If one stalls, the others continue. Mendoza can't fight all of them at once. I almost compromised everything during this period. I need to admit that, one night, frustrated and exhausted, I drafted a post for an online forum, 3 paragraphs laying out the whole situation. I wanted strangers to tell me I was right. I hovered over the submit button for a long time. Then I deleted it. Judith's voice in my head: anything public becomes ammunition. The satisfaction of venting wasn't worth giving Mendoza's future attorney a gift. Monday morning, Judith calls the sheriff's office to schedule a meeting. We'll present the criminal complaint in person, walk them through the evidence, and request they accompany us to the property. She expects to have an appointment within 48 hours. I thank her and hang up. Then I sit in my kitchen, staring at the same table where this started 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. That's all it took to go from standing on my own doorstep being told I didn't belong, to holding a file that could end Donald Mendoza's comfortable life. It feels fast. It also feels like the longest 3 weeks I've ever lived. Every night. I thought about my parents, the cabin they built together, the memories soaked into those walls, the stranger who took all of it and convinced himself he deserved it. I don't know exactly how the next few days will unfold. Mendoza has survived challenges before. Stephanie tried to expose him and got pushed out. Eleanor Vance's family gave up. He has connections in the community, maybe in the county. There's no guarantee this ends the way I want it to. But there's one thing I know for certain. He's been crossing my land for 18 months without permission. That ends tomorrow. And when it does, every choice he makes from that moment forward gets documented. The gate is ready, the file is ready, the sheriff is next. Whatever Mendoza does now, he does it on camera, Wednesday morning, 7 o'clock. I drive up the mountain in the dark, arriving at the gate just as the sun breaks over the ridge. The steel frame gleams in the early light. The camera blinks its steady red pulse. I step out of my car, unlock the gate with my phone, and then lock it again behind me. For the first time since this started, I secured my own property. Then I drive back down to the county road and wait. The camera feeds to my phone in real time. At 8:47, a silver Camry appears on screen, Mendoza's car. It approaches the gate and stops. The driver's door opens. He steps out, walks to the gate, and tries the handle. Locked. He looks up at the camera, then at the sign. He pulls out his phone and makes a call. I can't hear what he's saying, but his body language is clear. Tight shoulders, sharp gestures. He's not confused anymore. He's angry. The call lasts 4 minutes. Then he gets back in the car and just sits there. 15 minutes pass. He doesn't move. He's waiting for something, or someone. At 10:30, I'm sitting in the parking lot of the El Paso County Sheriff's substation with Judith Watson. Deputy Raymond Ortiz meets us in a small conference room. He's in his mid-40s, calm, methodical, the kind of officer who listens more than he talks. Judith walks him through the file, the deed, the survey. The violation notices were sent with no certified mail, the altered tax address, the 18 months of payments from an account that isn't mine, the footage of Mendoza entering and exiting the property, the backdated HOA resolution from Eleanor Vance's case. Ortiz takes notes. He asks a few clarifying questions. When Judith finishes, he closes his notebook and looks at me. What you've described appears to meet the threshold for criminal trespass, he says. Possibly more, depending on what we find. I'll need to speak with Mr. Mendoza directly. We caravan up the mountain. My car, Judith's car, the deputy's cruiser. The gate is still locked when we arrive. Mendoza's Camry is gone, but when I check the camera log, I see he only left an hour ago. He's inside. I unlock the gate with my phone. The 3 vehicles proceed up the dirt road, and for the first time in 18 months, I approach my own front door with the law beside me. Ortiz knocks. 30 seconds pass. The door opens. Donald Mendoza stands in the frame, wearing slacks and a pressed shirt, as if he'd been expecting company. His expression shifts when he sees the deputy. "Officer," he says, voice steady but careful. "Is there a problem?" Ortiz introduces himself and explains that he's responding to a complaint regarding the property. Mendoza's eyes flick to me, then back to the deputy. "I see. Well, I'm the HOA president. This property was declared abandoned under our bylaws. I've been overseeing its preservation." Ortiz nods slowly. "Do you have documentation of that deed, a lease, a court order authorizing your occupancy?" Mendoza hesitates. It's brief, maybe half a second, but I catch it. "The HOA has internal procedures," he says. "This is a community matter, not a criminal one." Ortiz doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. "Sir, I'm asking a simple question. Do you have any legal document that grants you the right to occupy this property?" Silence behind Mendoza. I see movement. Diana appears in the hallway, watching from a distance. She doesn't speak. Mendoza's jaw tightens. "I've been maintaining this property in good faith," he says. "The owner abandoned it. I acted to protect community standards." Ortiz glances at me, then back at Mendoza. "Mr. Howard is the owner. He's standing right here. He never authorized your presence. And according to county records, no lien, foreclosure, or transfer of interest has been filed against this property." Another pause, longer this time. Mendoza's composure cracks, just slightly. "This is a misunderstanding," he says. "I'm sure we can resolve it through proper channels." Ortiz shakes his head. "Sir, based on the evidence presented, I'm placing you under arrest for criminal trespass. You have the right to remain silent." The words land like a door closing. Diana gasps from the hallway. Mendoza doesn't resist, but his face goes pale. He looks at me as Ortiz guides him toward the cruiser, not with anger, with something closer to disbelief, as if he never imagined this moment was possible, as if the rules he bent for years were supposed to protect him forever. I don't say anything. I don't need to. The handcuffs speak for themselves. News travels fast in a small community. By evening, the arrest is the only thing anyone in Eagle Ridge is talking about. I hear about it from Stephanie, who's been monitoring the community message board. Diana posted first, claiming her husband was wrongfully detained and accusing me of harassment. But the comments beneath her post aren't sympathetic. People are asking questions. What was Donald doing in that cabin? How long has he been living there? What happened to the reserve fund within hours? Other homeowners start sharing their own experiences. Unexplained fines, ignored complaints, board meetings are held without notice. The thread grows longer and angrier as the night goes on. 3 days later, an emergency HOA meeting is called, not by the board, by the homeowners themselves. Enough signatures to force a vote. I attend, but I sit in the back and don't speak. This isn't my fight anymore. It belongs to the community Mendoza exploited. The meeting lasts 2 hours. Donald is present, out on bail, seated in the front row with Diana beside him. He tries to speak early, claiming he acted in good faith, that he was protecting community property, and that the charges are exaggerated. A woman in the second row interrupts him. "You were protecting it by living in it rent-free with your wife." Another voice from the back. "Where's our reserve fund? Donald, $47,000 should be there. It's not." The questions keep coming. Donald tries to answer, but his explanations collapse under their own weight. Diana stares straight ahead. Silent. 3 motions are put to a vote. First, removal of Donald Mendoza from the HOA board, passed unanimously. Second, authorization of an independent financial audit, passed. Third, full cooperation with law enforcement in any ongoing investigation, passed. When the final vote is announced, Donald stands and walks out without a word. Diana follows. No one stops them. No one says goodbye. I stay until the room empties. Stephanie finds me near the door. "You did it," she says quietly. I shake my head. "They did it. I just gave them a reason to look." She smiles, but there's something sad in it. Most people don't. That's the difference. I drive home in the dark. The mountain air is cold through the cracked window. Tomorrow, the legal process continues. Charges to be filed, depositions to schedule, a civil lawsuit to pursue, but tonight, for the first time in months, I feel something I'd almost forgotten. Not victory, not yet. Just the quiet certainty that the truth is finally out in the open.
If you're still here, you've earned something. Remember the first violation notice Donald sent me? The one about unmaintained landscaping 18 months ago? I pulled up satellite imagery from that exact date. The lawn was fine, completely normal. No overgrowth, no visible issues. He wasn't citing a real violation. He was creating a paper trail, setting up a justification he could point to later if anyone ever asked questions. That's how predators operate. They don't attack randomly. They prepare. They document. They build a story before you even know you're the target. You saw the pattern before Donald did. That's why you're still watching. The weeks that follow move slowly. Legal processes don't operate on the timeline of emotion. They operate on paperwork, court dates, and the grinding machinery of bureaucracy. But unlike the bureaucracy Donald Mendoza weaponized, this one has teeth, and it's finally biting back. The district attorney's office reviews the criminal complaint and files formal charges. I sit in Judith's office as she walks me through the list. Criminal trespass in the first degree, a Class 5 felony under Colorado law, carrying up to 3 years in state prison, theft for the personal belongings removed from the property and never returned, valued between $5,000 and $20,000, is also a Class 5 felony. Fraud, specifically a scheme to defraud through falsified HOA documents and misrepresentation of authority, is a Class 4 felony with a presumptive range of 2 to 6 years, and forgery for the backdated board resolution used to justify the takeover of Eleanor Vance's property, another Class 5 felony, 4 charges, 4 potential prison sentences. Judith explains that with multiple felonies and clear evidence of premeditation, the judge could order consecutive sentencing. Donald Mendoza, who spent years using procedure as a shield, now faces the full weight of procedure turned against him. Diana Mendoza is charged separately. Accessory to criminal trespass, accessory to fraud, both misdemeanors, but enough to ensure she can't claim ignorance. She knew what her husband was doing. She benefited from it. She posted attacks against me while living in my parents' house. The law doesn't forget. You might be wondering what happens next. Does this go to trial? Do I have to sit in a courtroom and relive everything while Donald's attorney tries to paint me as the aggressor? The answer, as it turns out, is no. 3 months after the arrest,
Donald's attorney reaches out to Judith with a plea offer. He wants to negotiate. The negotiation takes 2 weeks. I'm not in the room for most of it, but Judith keeps me informed. Donald's position is weak, and he knows it. The evidence is overwhelming. The community has turned against him. The independent audit, completed 6 weeks after the emergency meeting, revealed exactly what Stephanie Patel suspected. $47,000 are missing from the reserve fund. $23,000 paid to a maintenance company owned by Donald's brother, with no competitive bidding and no documentation of work performed. Forged meeting minutes covering unauthorized expenditures. The HOA board, now under new leadership, has filed its own civil suit against the Mendozas. Donald isn't just fighting me anymore. He's fighting everyone he ever exploited. The final plea agreement comes through on a Thursday afternoon. Donald pleads guilty to reduced charges, criminal trespass in the second degree, and fraud. In exchange, the theft and forgery charges are dropped. The sentence 18 months of supervised probation, 200 hours of community service, and full restitution. Diana pleads guilty to a single misdemeanor count of accessory to trespass. She receives a fine and 12 months of unsupervised probation. I won't pretend I'm satisfied with the outcome. No one goes to prison. Donald Mendoza will not spend a single night in a cell for what he did to me, to Eleanor Vance, to the community he was supposed to serve. Part of me wanted to see him in an orange jumpsuit, wanted the system to punish him the way he deserved. But Judith reminds me of something important. Prison isn't the only consequence, she says. Look at what he's lost. She's right. Donald Mendoza lost his position on the HOA board. He lost his reputation in a community where he once held power. He lost his ability to hide behind procedure and authority. His name now appears in court records, in news articles, in the permanent public history of Eagle Ridge Estates. He will never serve on another board. He will never hold another position of trust. For a man who built his identity on control and status, that might be worse than a cell. The civil case settled 2 weeks later. The Mendoza's attorney contacts Judith with an offer before we even file for a court date. They know they can't win. The settlement $127,000. That covers the replacement value of my parents' belongings that were lost or damaged. It covers 18 months of fair market rent for the property they occupied without permission. It covers my legal fees, my travel costs, the gate I installed, the security system, and the hours I spent building a case instead of living my life. And it covers something harder to quantify: the emotional toll of walking into my own home and being told I didn't belong there. As part of the settlement, I require one additional term, a written apology, signed by both Donald and Diana Mendoza, to be posted on the HOA website for a minimum of 12 months. Judith advises against it. It's unusual, she says. They might reject it. But they don't. They sign. And the next week, a statement appears on the Eagle Ridge Estates homepage. 2 paragraphs, formal language, an admission of wrongdoing, and an apology to me by name. It's not satisfying in the way I imagined. Reading it feels hollow, like hearing someone apologize because they were told to, not because they mean it, but it's there, permanent, public, a record that can't be erased. The HOA's separate lawsuit settled a month later. The Mendozas agree to repay the missing reserve funds in installments over 5 years. Donald's brother's company is barred from future contracts with the association. New bylaws are adopted requiring annual independent audits, term limits for board members, and recorded votes for any enforcement action against homeowners. The system that allowed Donald to operate is being rebuilt from the inside. I think about Eleanor Vance sometimes, the woman who died without knowing someone was living in her cabin. Her family settled quietly and walked away. They never got the answers I got. They never saw accountability. I can't change that, but I can make sure her name isn't forgotten. In my civil complaint, I included a section documenting what happened to her property. It's part of the public record now. Anyone who searches Donald Mendoza's name will find it. Some debts can't be repaid, but they can be acknowledged. That has to be enough. 1 year later, I stand in the living room of my cabin, watching the late afternoon sun pour through windows. I finally got around to cleaning. The renovation took 4 months. New flooring to replace what the Mendozas had worn through. Fresh paint on walls that held too many wrong memories. A kitchen remodel my mother would have loved. with the white cabinets she always wanted but never got around to installing. The furniture is different now. Most of my parents' things were gone by the time I got the house back. Sold, donated, or simply discarded, but a few pieces survived. The leather armchair my father saved 6 months to buy sits beside the fireplace, reupholstered but still recognizable. And on the wall above the mantel, the family photographs are back. My parents on their wedding day. I was a child, learning to ski on the slope behind the cabin, the three of us together, the last Christmas before my mother got sick. The cabin doesn't feel the same as it did when I was growing up. It can't. Too much has changed, but it feels like mine again. That's enough. Stephanie Patel comes up for a barbecue in early September. She brings 2 other homeowners from Eagle Ridge, people I met during the emergency meeting, people who asked the questions that needed asking. We sit on the back deck and watch the sun set over the mountains. The conversation drifts from the weather to the HOA to the changes that have taken root since Donald's removal. Eagle Ridge Estates has a new board now, term limits, annual independent audits, meeting minutes are posted online within 48 hours, a homeowner's rights orientation for every new resident. The system isn't perfect, no system is, but it's harder to exploit than it used to be. Stephanie raises her glass. You know, she says, I spent 2 years trying to get someone to listen, filing complaints, collecting documents, watching nothing change. Then you show up, and in 3 months the whole thing collapses. I shake my head. You did the work. I just had something you didn't. She tilts her head. What's that? I look out at the dirt road winding down the mountain. The road. If I didn't own that easement, none of this would have mattered. Mendoza would still be here. I'd still be fighting in court. Sometimes the difference between justice and frustration is one detail nobody thought to check. The new board asked me to join them. Twice. I declined both times. I didn't fight this battle to gain power. I fought it to make sure power couldn't be abused the same way again. The moment I take a seat on that board, I become part of the system I criticized. I'd rather stay outside, watch, make sure the reforms stick. And if they don't, I'll still have my documents, my spreadsheets, my tendency to notice when numbers don't add up. The gate is still there, at the entrance to the property. I thought about taking it down after everything had settled. It served its purpose. The road is mine, and everyone knows it now, but I decided to keep it. Not because I'm paranoid, not because I expect another Donald Mendoza to appear. I keep it because every time I drive through, I remember what it took to get here. The patience, the documentation, the refusal to let anger make my decisions for me. The gate isn't a barrier anymore. It's a reminder. If you're watching this and you're in a situation like mine, whether it's an HOA, a landlord, an employer, or anyone else who uses their position to take what isn't theirs, I want to leave you with 3 things. First, document everything. Not because you're paranoid, but because when you need proof, you'll have it. Emails, photos, timestamps, receipts. The more records you keep, the harder it is for someone to rewrite the story. Second, the legal system is slow, but it works. If you have evidence, if you have patience, if you're willing to follow the process instead of shortcutting it, you can win. Not always quickly, not always completely, but you can win. Third, don't let anger choose your timing. Anger feels righteous. It feels urgent. But anger makes mistakes. The best decisions I made in this entire process were the ones I made after the anger passed, when I could think clearly, when I could see the whole board instead of just the piece in front of me. Donald Mendoza didn't lose because I was smarter than him. He lost because he believed his authority was stronger than the truth. He thought the rules protected him because he wrote them. He forgot that rules only matter when someone enforces them. And eventually, someone always does. I walk out onto the deck as the last light fades behind the peaks. The air is cold and clean, the kind of air my father used to breathe in deeply, every single morning, like he was reminding himself why he built this place. I understand now. It wasn't just about the view, or the quiet, or the escape from the city. It was about having something that belonged to him, something no one could take away. This is my home. It took 18 months, a steel gate, and 127 documents to prove it, but it was always mine. And now, finally, it feels that way again.